You ever think like, I should have stayed to be a lawyer?
God no. Yeah, God no, man. I always think like, thank God I went to law school. Thank God I practice law because it helps me every day. There's nothing like being an entrepreneur. It can be lonely though. When you have problems, it's lonely.
Welcome to the podcast. Good to see you.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey.
Good to see you.
It's weird that you have not been on the podcast.
Well, yeah.
Considering I see you 5 times a week, and
Totally.
we talk about the podcast.
We have our famous kebab bazaar lunches.
We do a lot of lunches.
Great lunch
and
spot.
somehow it's never happened, but you're here.
And I love that you're doing this. The studio is amazing. Awesome forum.
Thank you. I think you were the one that pushed for this, the podcast, I feel like. Which I'm glad you did.
I think you doing a podcast with your personality and the people you know and everything is amazing. You know, I thought about doing a podcast for a while, but as you know, it takes a lot of time. But I'm glad you're doing it.
It does take a lot of time. I think it's been a good thing though for like the business and for just like myself and a lot of things.
Absolutely.
So thanks for pushing me to do this thing.
I'm glad you do it. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So
what are your favorites?
My favorite is How Leaders Lead.
Mm-hmm.
The person that does the podcast ran Yum Brands. He's a super experienced business person, but he has great guests. Like yesterday, I was jogging listening to the head coach of Missouri football. Like I don't even know the guy's name, but it was really good. He had Brad Doherty, who's the head coach of North Carolina basketball.
Yep.
He's had business leaders of all types. Really cool. People who run business, run sports teams. He had Deion Sanders. That was fun.
Did he? Nice.
Yeah, and then Diary of a CEO, kind of a young guy, but he interviews CEOs. He's really good.
He's really good. I didn't realize how young he is. I think he's
like 30.
He's like 30. Because I don't know, he's very good on camera and his questions are great.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, hey, he's probably like 50, 45, 30 years old.
He speaks to me because he talks about like business, but also health. Like, so a lot of it's about like health and longevity, which like, as you know, I'm really into.
Yeah.
So those two are my favorites. I mean, How I Built This with Guy Raz is good, but I think the top two are the first two I mentioned.
I like those. Yeah, no, I've gotten into Diary of a CEO, and I've been listening to a lot of them. I listened to the longevity one recently.
And I'm glad you're working out hard now. My man here is like into the Tonal,
and you now are into the Tonal.
A friend of mine gave me the Tonal, which is amazing.
And now
I'm actually lifting
like
weights.
1 weekend. 2 weeks in?
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with it now, which happens. So I'm running, I'm doing the Tonal, so I'm going to actually try to get some muscles, which would be cool. Or what's your deal? I'm just
details.
playing, yeah.
Is there a 12-minute bicep burnout workout? Sure. Did I do it today?
Maybe, right. You might be wearing the vest because
highly recommend it.
Yeah, totally.
So you're very healthy. You've been pushing health in me. I love the health concept. And I'm excited that I'm actually excited about it for once in my life. Because I've never consistently done health.
Why are you excited about it now?
Yeah, it's a great question. Number one, I feel so much better when I, mentally when I work out.
Yeah, me too.
So I feel so much better about that. And then, literally, I just want to live as long as possible for my kids.
Absolutely.
I want to, and not only live, but, be able to do whatever, play sports,
totally.
Do fun things, all those things.
Yeah, like if you want to water ski when you're 80, you want to be able to do it.
Yeah, there's a thing there's you watch some of these people, I can think of some relatives right now, who they haven't been able to travel because they're unfortunately, they have cancer, they're out of shape, they can't move well, they can't even sleep lying down because, they have a lot of things going on physically. So is that living?
It's not. Yeah, it's not. My mother's 73. She's in great health. She gardens. She plays golf all the time. She, reads and does words with friends and all that stuff. But she has friends now that she can't go on certain trips with certain 73-year-old friends because they can't go for a hike. They can't go walk around the town they're in, So it's really self-limiting. You're cutting the enjoyment of your lifespan down materially,
Seriously. And so, if, let's say the last 15 years of your life like that, are you really living or are you just surviving?
Plus, we have young kids. I mean, we both have, our kids are almost the same age, 10, 8, and 4, and yours are, I think, 10, 8, and 5. Yeah. And so it's I'm 48. You want to be around and as vital as you can, as long as you can,
And, on that note, though, this is why life is also unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, you were telling me the story about your dad who passed away at 54.
54, yeah.
Was in great shape.
Yeah, he'd run a marathon 4 years before, Marine Corps marathon. I remember it because I was in law school, and I remember thinking about him all day because it was in the high 80s in October, and it was very humid that day. And I thought at 50 years old, this is kind of dangerous. And so he ran 26 miles and did it at a good pace. I mean, he wasn't lounging around.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, look, I was a young lawyer at a big law firm, Reed Smith. I was practicing law. I had a couple of great mentors there. I was fortunate. But it was a lot of hard work. And one Saturday morning, my now wife and I had gone to a comedy club the night before and were kind of sleeping in. And I got a call kind of mid-morning. Actually, I had a call from my father that morning. I didn't tell you this, I don't think, in the story that I missed. And I'm convinced he was inviting me to lunch that day. And that actually must have been later, a little bit later, because he had lunch with a dear friend of his who's a dear friend of mine now and a mentor of mine, Steve Garchick. And my father had a heart attack at lunch that day at Maggiano's and Tyson's. And so I was called that he had been rushed to the hospital, and he passed away, which just was like, if you'd have told me that he would die at 54, I'd have never believed it. Like I
and what I didn't know about the story was, because I didn't know what kind of health he was in. You told me he'd run the marathon. You told me he'd gotten checkups every 6 months. Right. Because his dad had passed away.
My grandfather died of a heart attack at 64. So my father's life goal was to not have the same thing happen. In fact, he and I and my now wife and my mother went out to dinner a week before, and he said he was getting, at the time it was in 2005, and the cardiac scans were pretty new. So he was getting his cardiac imaging a few months, and he had scheduled it for 2 months out. So had he had it, he'd probably still be alive today.
It's so unfair when that happens, but then you think about is there anything you can do preventively?
That's what I'd say to everyone out there. And that's why I'm always banging the drum with you. The people that I care about the most in this world, I want them to live forever because I want to be around them, Frank. Selfishly, I want my good friends to be around, and I want you to be around for your children, and so I kind of push the health and longevity. My friends all know I eat real clean and I work out every day. And my objective is to live as long as I can. I want to live into my hundreds. I tell people that. Why not? I love life. I love my kids, my family, my friends. And I know you feel the same way. So I kind of push that. So in 2005, the technology wasn't as good as it is today.
Yeah.
So now today, my dad was going to see his doctor every 6 months. He was so concerned about it.
That's crazy because that's a lot. Most people don't even go once a year to get a general checkup, right? He was going to his cardiologist.
He's going there, and back then he was like, "Oh, my cholesterol's low. I'm good." So it turns out he had one clogged artery, so it wasn't. And this was a person that he was my father, but I also talked to him 3-4 times a day. We were very close.
Yeah.
He was the center of my world in terms of helping me with business, giving me advice and all that stuff. I'm really fortunate. I have an amazing mother. I have an amazing sister who, once that happened, everybody just, we banded together. I had to learn how to lead in a way I didn't know how to lead before. And,
well, let's talk about that. So you're working at a big law firm, and then you basically take over the business at that time?
I wouldn't say that. So what happened was, over time, my father had 2 partners, one in land development, Steve, and another one in self-storage, Alan, and both were amazing people, very honest, hardworking, sincere people who cared about my father a lot. They were amazing through the process. And so over time, I got really much more involved in the land development side. He had a big project that we took through the rezoning process. We rezoned 181 acres in Prince George's County. So I did that with Steve Garchick, and, he was amazing. Alan was amazing. We just I kind of worked through what was happening with a few development projects he had left, made, a few decisions. Sometimes we sold a self-storage property, actually 2 of them, that I wish we hadn't, but it's the things that you need to do. Yeah. My sister she was an elementary school teacher and a good one, and decided to go back, get her accounting degree, kind of help manage the money side of what was left of the business and kind of help my mother. And then fast forwarding years later, she's been handling all things money related for my businesses and does an incredible job at it. You can go one of 2 ways when something like that happens. You either sort of cower and you fall apart, or everybody steps up. I'm blessed to have the best mother someone could possibly have in every possible way. And I mean that. We evolved and adapted, and so I practiced law for, another year after that or so. And then I was asked to try to work with a guy who was working for a big real estate private equity fund to try to find off-market deals in Washington. Big deals, try to buy office buildings off market and hotels. And we tried that for 2 years in 06 to 08 when the world was going to shit. And, right before it did, and we didn't buy anything. So I was kind of bored doing it, but I learned a lot about off-market acquisitions that I would later apply, and did part-time law and part-time real estate for a while, and then started the lending business, et cetera.
Well, so eventually you went and started your own business. What was the determining factor to do that? Why did you say, I'm at this law firm, I can work nonstop all the time, make a lot of money, or or go off on my own.
I did a part-time law, part-time real estate thing with some former Reed Smith guys from like '08 to probably to when I started Congressional Capital, and then did both for a while. Really what happened is I was at a wedding in 2010, and there was a guy I knew from high school was talking about flipping houses and how well he was doing. So the world was coming out of the Great Recession, right? Mm-hmm. Just in the beginning, and so he was doing well. And the people that sort of had the gumption to go in 2010 and buy real estate did really well. And he called me and said right after January of 2011 and said, "Hey, I have like 9 house flips going. Do you know anybody who does hard money? I need a hard money loan." So I called a guy. My dad would do hard money in and out of cycles, and I called a guy who used to work with my father. And that guy didn't call him back. I think it was like in vacation or something. Yeah. So he called me like 10 days later. He's like, "Brian, I'm kind of in a spot. Like I need like hard money soon." So then I called Steve Garchik, my dad's longtime friend, and partner. And I said, "Hey, Steve, I want to start a hard money lending business. Can I come meet with you? Mm-hmm. Can you help introduce me to capital, et cetera?" And he was like, "Absolutely, I want to help you." We sat in his office, talked about it, and he's been amazing ever since. He was a great source of guidance. So I did like 1 hard money loan, and then 2, and then 3, and I thought, man, I really like this. So I was doing hard money and development and practicing law to make sure I had a steady income, and all those things kind of came together. And then over time, I was doing more and more lending and more development. And back then, I'm like, building the lending business just like you build a title company. You go out and you meet with. Back then, I didn't have kids, so it was breakfast, lunch, drinks. I used to like. On Thursdays, I'd look at my calendar for the next week, and I'd be like, have I filled up every breakfast, lunch, and drink slot so that I can meet more people? Yep. And I did that, and I just did 1 loan and 2 loans and 10 and 20, and now I've done over 550.
That's crazy. So. And then when you were doing development early on, were you doing single family at the time?
No, my first project was a 7-unit condo project. Yeah.
Nice.
And the guy who built it, Mike, who Yep. I met at CrossFit, which nobody ever believed.
Creasy was on it,
And nobody ever believed that I actually have done CrossFit, but I have years ago. So Mike built it and did the money side and the development side, and we did well. It was a great project. Mike did a great job. He built a bunch of other things for me over the years. I got to know he and his family like I do with most people I do business with, and we became good friends.
We talk about kind of like, hey, people should invest in condos now that they're down, like, lending business too. Let's talk about there's ups and downs with all businesses. So over your career, like when was the best time of lending, worst times of lending? Are we in a good market?
The best time to lend generally is when bank rates are really high and capital is constrained. Like if people look for banks for, loans for house flips and small condo projects, and banks have high rates and they have, they're being difficult, hard money tends to thrive. So like 2011, 12, 13 was an incredible time to be a hard money lender. There was no money available for these projects that were really needed. They're needed to revitalize the city. They're needed to provide new housing. It's no secret there's a housing shortage in the United States. Kamala Harris was talking about incenting the production of like 3 million more homes, right?
For those people that don't understand hard money, give me a comparison if you go get a loan from a bank or you get a loan from you, like the pros and cons. For someone out there that might be interested.
Sure, if you go to a bank, I'm on the board of a local bank. I know the bank process. I've borrowed from lots of local banks. Banks can be great, right? But banks require personal financial statements that are in-depth. Require typically quite a bit of experience, right? So if you're inexperienced, it's going to be a tougher place to go. There's a lot of paperwork. Like I have some borrowers of mine who they certainly qualify as local bank borrowers, but they hate paperwork. They'll tell you. I've got a couple of Turkish borrowers who they're like, I hate paperwork. I'm good at construction. I'm good at development, but I don't like paperwork, so I'd rather borrow from you. Yeah, well, I'm more expensive. You know that, right? But they're like, we don't care. That's not our thing.
Then money down, what is it, 25-ish% these days?
At banks, it's more like 25. And now banks require compensating balances, which means like you have to deposit a certain amount of money in the bank, and you're putting equity in the deal. So your cash requirement is much higher. And our loans I make the decision on what the structure is. So I've done loans where people are buying it really cheap, where the loan provides all the money, basically. No, you put nothing down.
Yeah, and that's a good example, right? And so how do you determine that? What loan to value? You're looking at the final sale price.
Correct.
Can you explain that a little
we
bit?
look at the final sale price, and then we back into if the final sale price is $1 million, we can loan a total of 65% of that. So we do 65% of the after renovated value. So in that scenario, if somebody buys something really cheap, like say they buy it for $400, and they're like, it'll take $250 to renovate, I can loan them $400 plus $250. Yeah. I just want the loan to cover all the construction costs, right? Sure. So that I know that if, God forbid, like something bad happened to them, the loan provides funding to finish it, you know.
Yeah. Hard money lending business, congressional capital. You've developed extensively across DC. So you've done 2 to 20 units. So I think you're doing over 20 units. You only have
Sure, no, I mean bigger stuff now. We do a lot of rental apartment stuff that's a bit larger. You know, we have a 38 unit that we developed, a 27 unit, just finished a 22 unit.
Cool.
We're going to start a 34 unit in another month.
A lot of times in the past, I know those were condos that you were selling, but the condo market's been really tough the last few years.
Yeah.
So a lot of them now you're holding and turning into apartments.
Well, right? Sure. I mean, many of them I planned to do that anyways years ago. Like I shifted from doing smaller condo projects to doing more rental projects. But yeah, sure, the condo market's been tough.
Why do you think condo?
Interest rates.
Yeah.
I think interest rates are everything. I think affordability is a big problem.
Yeah.
So I think if you're somebody who's looking at renting and then saying, all right, look, I want to be able to paint my wall pink if I want to, right? Mm-hmm. Like I want to be able to, make changes to my apartment, but I can't because I have a landlord. I'd rather go buy something and own it. Home ownership, condo or home, is part of us as Americans, as human beings. Like people want to have a place to call their own. They don't want to have a landlord sort of figuratively hovering over them, and you're living someone else's place. But when you're, maybe you're 28 or you're 30, 32, 33, and you're like, all right, should I buy my first place? And rates are at 8% now, or 7, or now at 6. Affordability's tough, right? Yeah. So people are looking at it like, do I really want to do this? I also think there are factors like, when COVID happened, people started moving around more. And so I think you combine kind of those two things, and it doesn't really help the DC urban small condo market. That being said, I mean, when I'm out, which is occasional because I have 3 little kids, but DC is an incredibly vibrant place now. I mean, if you go down to the wharf, it's absolutely packed. I think people are using and enjoying DC at pre-pandemic levels in the evenings. I think what hasn't been helpful is offices not all returning back to work. Mm-hmm. I think that's changing personally. Yeah. So, and I think that makes a big impact. And I think as rates go down, like Amazon just announced, hey, look, everybody has to come back to work starting January 1 in the office, right? And so obviously there's a huge Amazon presence in near the airport in Northern Virginia. That helps. I mean, Amazon employees want to live in D.C., they want to live in Northern Virginia. All those factors will come together to improve the small condo market, but it's affordability fundamentally. Yeah, and I don't remember exactly, but rates were still low and condos were struggling. That was because people were moving more to single-family homes because of COVID? Is that accurate? I don't really know that was really the case. I mean, when the rates were low, the condo market was totally fine.
It was.
Okay. Yeah. It takes a while before people are like, oh, yeah, shit, rates are lower.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I should go buy. So people don't make a decision like that,
Yep.
So I think next year will be much better than this year. And I actually think right now a lot of the small condos are priced so well.
Yeah.
People should really be looking at buying them for investments.
It's a good long-term
renting them out, and then when rates go lower, they refinance and it yields more cash. I don't think people are thinking that way.
One thing I've seen a few times is people like, oh, I'm buying my personal residence for myself. Can I get a hard money loan? Why can they not do that?
Because that's a consumer loan, so we don't loan money to people that are going to live in their own property. Consumer loans are highly regulated for good reasons. If you're not doing it for business purposes, hard money loans are for business purposes, like commercial purposes only, meaning you're going to buy something with a business intent. Like I'm going to buy it to renovate and sell. I'm going to buy it and renovate and lease. Or, borrowing money for my business and I'm going to pay you off from a different source. That's fine too, but it cannot be for someone who's living there. One of the calls I get a lot is, hey, I have a client, this is from a real estate agent, I have a client coming from overseas, they have a bunch of cash, but because they're from overseas, can you give them a loan because, whatever the overseas issues are, they want to buy this $2 million house, they're going to put, and I can't do it. It's a consumer loan, so we don't do it. So I'm glad you asked that because it's a common misconception.
I've heard a lot of people ask me to ask you about that.
Totally. I've had lenders that you're friends with reach out and be like, hey, can you give my client a hard money loan? Their bank is taking too long and they want to close. And I'm like, are they going to live there? Yes. No, I can't do that.
And who is that regulated by of not allowing that to happen?
Well, it's all of like the usury laws that talk about what rates you can charge a consumer,
Okay.
And there's all sorts of consumer protections related to somebody who's buying a home and what loan like Wells Fargo can give them, et cetera.
Do you ever think like, I should have stayed to be a lawyer?
God no. Yeah, God no, man. I always think like, thank God I went to law school. Thank God I practiced law because it helps me every day. It helps me in the way that I think about term sheets, the way I think about risk throughout my business. There's nothing like being an entrepreneur. When you're growing the business and you're meeting good people and things are working, and then you're employing other people that you really like, and there's nothing quite like it. It can be lonely though. When you have problems, it's lonely.
It can be lonely, and I mean, look, it's very stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one side which is like, I root for everyone to do whatever they want, whether go work for someone, go be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I mean, business is tough, right? There is something about like, it can almost kill you from a health standpoint.
Totally. It can kill you. I'm convinced it may have killed my father. Like the stress can wear you down. I mean, I've had 2 really hard deals on the development side in the last year that have really been stressing me out. And I moved through past one of them and I have one left. And you can't let it overtake you, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, my mentor, Steve Garchik, he says things like, you got to look at it as like a holistic picture, right?
Yeah.
So if you have one thing that's really not going the way you want, if you got all these 99 other things that are going well, focus on those, right? And so I try, but when you want to be successful in everything you do, it's hard if something's not working out well.
Yeah.
What do you do with stress related to your business?
Well, no, it's a really good point because like there's been times where I'm like, all right, I have an obstacle race in New York City. The one race we have in government land, the federal government shut down that weekend. Yeah. And we lost $1 million overnight. I'm 30 years old and I don't have $1 million. And so that's a big deal, right?
Big deal,
so
huge
you
deal.
Want to be able to say, oh, let's focus on the good. It's like, maybe there isn't good there because you're going to get wiped out.
Maybe my life sucks right now. It's just part of life,
So that's very stressful. And you think of certain things, I'm thinking of over the career, there have been certain things where like this can shut down the entire business. And that is why you need to make a decision. Do you want that kind of stress on yourself and your family? Can you handle it? And can you handle it, right? Yeah. And then the other thing is, there's been certain times where like I don't focus on health or any of that at all because, whatever. The way I set up my life, there's not time for it, whatever. Now, I believe you can always set up your life. There's always time for it.
There's always time for it. That's a choice that's what I always tell people. I have a strong belief on 2 things. There's always time to respond to your emails. I'm friends with a U.S. Senator who's an awesome guy. Yep. If I email him, he responds to me. Who am I to him? Not that important. But he responds because that's how he is. Mm-hmm. The most successful people I know, they respond to their emails, right? Like it's prioritizing things. Yep. In terms of your health. For everyone listening, can you make 30 minutes a day to work out? Of course you can. Yeah. Everybody screws around for 30 minutes or more, 30 minutes to an hour. I don't care how busy you are.
Yep. It's about prioritization.
When Barack Obama was president, I'd hear all these stories about people meeting him at 4:45 to go to Camp David to play basketball, in the morning with him 3 days a week because he prioritized his health. Yep. For me, the single best stress relief is exercise. Like I agree. Jogging, working out, that's the best stress relief there is. But man, no, I don't ever regret not going back to practice law. Could you imagine working for somebody else? Yeah,
there's times where I'm like, there's a value of not having to take on that kind of stress. For me, I like it because I like stress and I like
you like the action and you like meeting people and all that. Yeah. I mean, I will say sometimes I've been away on trips with people who have those kind of jobs where at 5 o'clock their email shuts off and they don't have to look at it. And I've looked over at them and thought, jealous of that,
But you're not. I mean, you are jealous at that moment, but
and I'm the same guy who calls you on Saturday morning at 9 to talk about some business idea we have, and then of course check in on the family. But it never stops flowing, man.
The boredom thing, I'm not good at boredom. I like the action.
Boredom's death, man.
There's a thing where I think a lot of people do this, let's say you and myself, where we overload ourselves with too many things and then all of a sudden it becomes very overwhelming.
Totally.
And then so that's important to kind of make sure there's that balance where you need the action, you want the activity, but sometimes you're like, wait a second, we're doing how many things at once? And it becomes ooh, I had
this unique experience that I 2 weeks ago I had a Monday where I I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but somehow work where a couple things canceled. I had nothing on my schedule all day. It was one of the best working days I had in forever because you got incredibly organized. You could, reach out to people to help them. You could sort of ideate and think about what you want to do next and what you're doing with the, all sorts of things. And it was peaceful. It's a nice way to be.
I think it's actually really important because when you are in meetings after meetings, it's almost impossible to focus on strategy and ideas. Like you have to do, a lot of times those come working out, those
Yeah.
come when you have time to think,
Totally.
so that is important to schedule that stuff. That's where I'm trying to get a little better at.
If you have meetings all day, you feel like you're constantly behind. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't get back to people over text, over email. You can't get back to phone
You
calls.
forget your suit at a podcast.
Yeah, you look great anyways.
Question I get a lot of times, people are like, hey, why does Brian fund or not fund a deal?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Well, yesterday's a great example. So I had a quick Zoom with a real estate agent and a potential borrower. And from the outset, I was like, I don't really understand why this is happening. Like why she'd want to do it. She'd never done a deal before. What happens a lot is like people hear from somebody like, oh, I've been doing house flips or I've been doing construction. It's gone well for me. And I'm like, I was thinking about like, what's your advantage? Like, did you buy it off market really cheap, and you're sort of a capital person, execution? Or are you like a contractor that has lots of crews and lots of resources, and so you can build efficiently? Like, what is it? So yesterday, it was a person who she was going to team up with a contractor, but he wasn't on the Zoom. And my recommendation too is if you're trying to get a loan, like put your best foot forward, know. And so there wasn't the experience level.
Yep.
I felt like they were buying something on market that they were just kind of overpaying for. Like none of it made sense.
Yeah.
What ends up getting me with new borrowers to do it is, do I either think they're getting an amazing deal and that they're going to execute their way through it, or the best borrowers for me have always been the ones with high construction acumen, and so their value add is like, we have construction guys, we have a team, I can help them with like, does the deal make sense otherwise? Some of the development things, like have you looked to see if the neighbor has solar panels, or are there chimneys that need to be extended, or other potential issues? Like I can help with those things, but like if they have an advantage on the construction side, like I'm more likely to want to loan the money.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you don't give yourself credit for, which maybe you should promote more, maybe you do, but like, you've built mini condos. I mean, not only are you providing money, but you're providing consulting services and contacts and relationships to help them build at a lower cost. I mean, if you think of it, a lot of people pay tons of money for mentorship, and you're including that at no cost.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. Like, one of the reasons people are like, why do you like being a hard money lender? It's like getting to know people and helping them as much as I can. Look, I was a lawyer because I wanted to help my clients, right? Here, I want to help my borrowers be successful. I have a borrower who's like 30, and he's been doing construction since he was 16, and I'm constantly meeting with him, giving him advice, I've had borrowers over the years where I'd go on like these long hikes with them and talk to them about life and business, etc. Like, that's the best part for me. It's not about like the money. It's about like, hey, can I help these people be successful in some way? And I like that. I like being a resource when they need me. Like the one borrower who reached out and he's like, I need $350,000 in the next week, because I'm buying inventory for my cabinet business. I like the fact that they come to me and I can help them. Like they're probably stressed, and now they're not going to be next week. So,
what about fraudsters out there? I want money. How do you know something's off? Is it a gut feeling?
Yes, it is a gut feeling.
Is that what it is?
It is, and you got to listen to your gut every time. There's some bad actors that float around the city that over time people get to know who they are, and there's some real trail of tears involved, and sadly, sometimes you see it unfolding and you tell people like, hey, I don't think you should loan money to that person. They don't listen. I had that experience happen. It's just like society. Most people are fundamentally good and fundamentally trying to do the right thing. And there's a small sliver of people that do the wrong thing. If you're honest and you're hardworking, things tend to work out better for you in life, right? Yeah. But when you stop being honest and you're don't work hard,
you're going to get caught eventually. You might get away with it for a time or two. But you're
eventually it comes back and gets you. And if it doesn't, how the hell can you sleep with yourself anyways, right? So your life sucks one way or the other. So
talking about kids, you and I talk a lot about how do we make sure our kids are not spoiled brats. You got any advice?
Gratitude, man. It's all about gratitude. Like one thing that we do religiously is every night when we sit around the dinner table, we start with gratitude. Everybody goes youngest to oldest. So I have a 4-year-old daughter who says the cutest things about what she's grateful for. And then an 8-year-old boy and a 10-year-old. And they say smart, thoughtful things. This weekend we spent with my mother, who's amazing, as I mentioned earlier. And they were like, we're grateful that Mimi's here, and we're grateful that we went fishing today.
I still remember, and I felt guilty about this, we were going to Jamaica when I was a kid, but we're driving to this nice resort, and on the way, just the The amount of poor people, like, hey, you understand, like, that's where someone lives. That's how, life is. Like, making sure they're seeing this stuff, right?
Dude, it's indelible. Like I remember I took my boys to Costa Rica when they were 5 and 3 or 6 and 4, and I remember my older boy Luke. We were same experience. We were driving on one of the like excursions, and it was one sort of tin hut, shanty after the next, and little boys and girls out front that were similar ages. And he was looking at him, and his eyes were wide. He'd never seen it before, and it's seeing it and feeling it. I mean, fortunately for my kids, my wife, the work that she does, they see how hard it is for some folks. Like what a challenge it can be because of their circumstances.
Talking about your wife, Erin. I mean, she's doing some great work in DC right now.
Yeah.
Tell us about, now you've got 2 full-time entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So a couple things. Tell us about what she's doing.
Sure.
And how are you surviving it? I mean, to
well,
pull it all up.
My wife has a company called C3 Cares, and what they do is they provide health care. They have 4 clinics, one in each of 4 housing projects in DC. And so their job is to provide the best possible health care to the residents of those housing projects. It's hard work, but she's built for it. My wife has been using, she has 3 nursing degrees. She's a nurse practitioner. During COVID, she was running a mobile health clinic where they were taking vaccines, first COVID testing and then vaccines to DC housing projects and helping folks get vaccinated. She kind of took that experience and realized that like bringing health to people. I mean, I always think about it like this. If a mobile thing came to my house and was like, Mr. Athey, do you want vaccines and whatever? I'd be like, hell yeah, sign me up. Like if you could bring it to people, it makes it easier. So she's done a great job of like being a part of the community and being there for the community. And they also, one of the things I'm really most proud of is they do vaccination and kid physicals for children at DC public schools, and right before school starts and otherwise. So she's part of like providing first class health care to, frankly, people who really need it and haven't had great access to it.
Yep. Welcome, Rapid Fire.
Thank you.
By the way,
Thank you.
Look at the team here. They built this. They built the stuff.
The Get Real thing is amazing. I mean, I love the logo.
Thank you.
But you're amazing
thank you to the
branding
to
and
our
logoing.
Tea. As a tea lover, what's your favorite tea?
Chai tea, baby. And guess what? I'm the only person that brings a chai tea that he likes to a fucking restaurant.
Hey, listen, not only that,
and
you brought your own tea here.
I brought my own tea, thank you. There's 3 tea bags in here. I like it extra intense.
I love it. It's
a great thing. Great. No coffee. I've never had coffee. Well, I tried espresso in Italy with everybody.
How would happen? Did you feel it?
It felt like I was like drinking diesel fuel or something. And actually, I will tell you this: the buzz was amazing. You feel incredible.
Efficient for the next hour.
Yeah, I thought I was going to keep doing that, and I got back to the U.S. and tried it, and I thought I was going to throw up when I had it here. So it was better in Italy.
One thing your kids have taught you about life.
My kids have taught me sort of about love, right? I mean, the way you love your kids is unlike anything else. My kids have also taught me about the importance of being present. It's incredibly important when you have kids to like be there, not be on your phone, go experience things. My kids have brought me a joy unlike any I've ever had in my life. It's been amazing. My older boy and my middle child are really into fishing now, and so it's like I used to fish a lot when I was a little kid, and now I'm like Mr. Fisherman, and they think I'm really good at it, which is funny because I'm good-ish, but I'm not that good.
I've been with you. You know what you're doing.
I know what I'm doing, yeah. Listen, I'm a redneck from Haymarket, Virginia. That's what happens.
It's good work. It's good work. Top 3 qualities of a successful real estate investor.
They create an advantage in some way, like either acquisitions, construction, etc.
What's another advantage besides those 2? Because everyone's like, buy cheap or build cheap. What else? What's another one?
I will say that I think some people are so good at design and implementation of it that it helps. Good. There are people that build such high quality, beautiful stuff that it sells in any market, So I've definitely seen that happen. Now that's way more rare. There are a lot of people who think they can do it, but really aren't that exceptional at it. I think persistence is like maybe the number one key. You're going to have roadblocks, but you have to constantly be focused on trying to get the best possible result you can. And then obviously like executing with honor and integrity is everything,
A book that you're currently loving, or podcast, but I can go with books. We talked about podcast earlier.
Well, there's certain books that I always recommend that like people read. I think Code of the Extraordinary Mind's an awesome book. There's a book called Home Wreckers that's absolutely fascinating about housing markets over time, and people have tried to take advantage of housing markets, and it has a unique perspective. I think it's an interesting sort of journey through downturns and upswings in the real estate world. I think those are good. I think a book called Buddha and the Badass that's really good that people should check out. And then The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. It's a lot about an entrepreneur's journey and sort of playing a game that you enjoy so much, in this case business, that you play it the rest of your life one way or the other.
Favorite DC neighborhood for development right
now? I mean, I love Capitol Hill. I mean, Capitol Hill is like a gold standard. I just think that the Commanders are going to come back to Hill East. I think that I'm incredibly bullish on Capitol Hill short and long term for a bunch of reasons.
And last one, favorite thing about guiding new developers?
Just watching them grow and evolve and getting to know them personally. Like, I think it's really, really interesting to like learn their stories and try to help them. And I like being a resource for them. But it's been incredible to watch some of them grow and evolve. I mean, there's a guy that I used to loan money to years ago who I gave him his first money on a house flip. And now I hear, he doesn't even borrow from me anymore. It's totally fine. But he's doing like 40 new home builds in Montgomery County. He's got a flooring business. He's got a couple of restaurants. He's been an incredible success story. So even though I don't loan him money really anymore, I'm really proud of him. And there are other folks like him.
Hey, listen, you're a great friend.
Yes.
First of all, for those that don't know, too, you became a partner in Allied Title many years ago. One of the best partnerships I've ever been a part of. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you.
And it's been a fun journey. It's good to finally have you on the podcast. I'm sorry for not inviting you sooner.
Just so you know, the Allied Title experience and meeting you and meeting Matt through it has been, maybe the best business experience of my life. Certainly one of them. Like, I got the key for everybody out there when you're going to be partners with somebody. When I was thinking about doing it, I just remember thinking, we met for a drink and I was like talking to a different title company about maybe doing something with them. And I met Matt and Latney, and I thought, man, I have no idea. The business was really quite small then. I don't know where this is going, but I really like these guys. I trust them. Matt and Latney have very complementary skill sets. Latney's amazing at marketing, branding, growth, and Matt's like the super experienced lawyer who has the legal mind, and they've been friends since they were kids. You put that together, and then you add me. I felt like it was an awesome thing that I want to be part of, and like now we become really close friends. And have done a lot of great business together, and I think Allie does an amazing job, so it's been amazing.
Hey, it's been a fun journey. There's challenges along the way, but we fight through them, and I think the future is bright.
The future is very bright.
Excited about everything.
Thanks a lot, bro.
Thanks, buddy.
Enjoy
Appreciate
it, man.
you coming on.
Absolutely.